Greetings and welcome to my channel. It's another Sunday and another episode of Joe Lum's album rankings. This week I focus on the band Bon Jovi. After listening to the track Legendary off their upcoming release Forever, which is due out in June, and the documentary Thank You, Good Night, The Bon Jovi Story, which you can watch on Hulu, premiering on Friday, April 26th. So today I rank all 15 of the Bon Jovi band's studio albums from worst to best. As always, when you're done, you can check out past album rankings videos in the playlist. I have it in the description box. And now, on with the video. At number 15 is Bon Jovi's most recent studio album, 2020. John Bon Jovi written 90% of the album. The album was supposed to be out in the first half of 2020. However, due to the global pandemic we were all facing at the time, John took the opportunity to write two more songs, like Do What You Can and American Reckoning, which is a protest song about the murder of George Floyd, written in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. Two other songs that stood out were Limitless and Unbroken. While I can appreciate what John and company were doing in a dark time in everyone's lives, the record itself failed to reach the top 10, only making it to number 19 on the Billboard 200. The only other Bon Jovi album that failed to reach the top 10 would be this next one. At number 14 is Burning Bridges, released on August 21st, 2015. The album contained nothing but unreleased and unfinished songs that were rejected on previous Bon Jovi albums. This was like the first Bon Jovi album since the departure of longtime lead guitarist Richie Sambora. Producer John Shanks did all the solo guitar parts for this record. The songs that stood out were Saturday Night Gave Me Sunday Morning and We Don't Run. It made it to number 13 on the Billboard 200 and going gold in Austria. Next, number 13 is This House Is Not For Sale. It was released on November 4th, 2016. This was Bon Jovi's sixth and most recent number one album on the Billboard 200. The album reached number one on Billboard's Top Rock Albums charts and reached number 5 on the UK Albums charts as well. The songs that stood out were Knockout, Labor of Love, New Year's Day, Living with the Ghost, and When We Were Us. It was the first album to feature Hugh McDonald on bass guitar, even though he had been touring with Bon Jovi dating back to the mid-90s, after they replaced Alec John Such. It was also the first Bon Jovi album to feature a Canadian-born guitarist by the name of Phil X, replacing longtime guitarist Richie Sambora. The songs were good, but it's a far cry from albums like Crush, Bounce, and Have a Nice Day. Speaking of one of those three albums, next, number 12 is Bounce from 2002, released on October 8th, 2002. Even though it made it to number 2 on the Billboard 200, it failed to reach platinum status in the United States. Go figure. But managed to go platinum in Japan, Germany, and Canada. The standout tracks for this one are Every Day, All About Loving You, Love Me Back to Life, and Misunderstood. I don't know why every Bon Jovi fan slept on this record, but the critical reception was said to be mixed to unfavorable. Next, number 11 is What About Now, released in 2013. This album was what turned me off to Bon Jovi completely, and I believe in 2013 it was the year Richie Sambora had left the band, mainly due to him going through some personal shit in his life. It may have went to number 1 on Billboard's 200, the Top Rock Album, and the Top Tastemaker Albums charts. It failed to capture gold and platinum status as the band was accustomed to. By the way, the song Because We Can sucked. Next, number 10 is Bon Jovi's self-titled debut. This was the album that started it off for John Bon Jovi and company, only making it to number 43 on the Billboard 200 and going double platinum. Bon Jovi's self-titled debut featured the standout tracks like She Don't Know Me, Burning for Love, Shot Through the Heart, and of course Runaway, which by the way became the band's first top 40 hit on the Billboard Hot 100. Not a bad record debut, in all honesty. It was a good debut album for Bon Jovi. Next, number 9 is 78,000 Degrees Fahrenheit. Even though the singles Only Lonely and In and Out of Love were charted on the Billboard Hot 100, they weren't as successful as Runaway was from their debut. Released on March 27th, 1985, the album went platinum and made it to number 37 on the Billboard 200. Other tracks on this record that stood out were Silent Night, Tokyo Road, The Hardest Part is the Night, and The Price of Love. And no, I'm not talking about the Bad English song either. You can check out the Bad English album review episode I did on my album review series. Next, at number 8 is Lost Highway from 2007. While I find it generous that Bon Jovi went country for this record, at the same time, and I mean this with all due respect to country music fans out there, I hate country music. The inspiration for John and Company to do this record was after the band's duet with Jennifer Nettles from the band Sugarland on the song Who Says You Can't Go Home from the previous album, Have a Nice Day. You Want to Make a Memory is the only standout track from this record, and it reached number 1 on the Billboard 200, the first time since New Jersey, another platinum seller for the Bon Jovi gang. Next, number 7 is The Circle. It's the last Bon Jovi album I ever purchased. Bon Jovi was back to their hard rock, pop rock roots with this one following its November 10th, 2009 release. It went gold in the States and became the band's second consecutive number 1 album, featuring the standout single We Weren't Born to Follow. The album had some pretty decent tracks like Superman Tonight, Working for the Working Man, Thorn in My Side, and Broken Promised Land. The Circle is also Bon Jovi's 5th album to reach number 1 in Japan, of all countries. At number 6 is These Days from 1995. Even though the album cracked the top 10 and went platinum here in the States, it was not as successful as it would be overseas, reaching number 1 in countries like the UK, Japan, Portugal, Austria, Australia, Germany, and Switzerland. These Days is overall a more darker album compared to other Bon Jovi albums, in contrast of the usual brand of feel-good, inspiring rock anthems and love ballads. The standout songs include This Ain't a Love Song, Hey God, Lie to Me, and the title track. The album was produced by Peter Collins, who had produced albums for Queensryche and Rush. Next, we now make it to the top 5, and at number 5 is Keep the Faith, released in November of 1992, 4 years after the successful New Jersey record and a tour in support. The band went on hiatus. At the time, John Bon Jovi dabbled into some solo work, writing the soundtrack for the Young Guns 2 movie, which had a hit single called Blaze of Glory. So when this album came out, they started to drastically change from their 80s anthems to a more adult-oriented rock sound similar to bands like Journey and Foreigner. Since its release, Keep the Faith went to number 5 on the Billboard 200, going double platinum, featuring the standout hits like Keep the Faith, In These Arms, I'll Sleep When I'm Dead, I Believe, and the ballad Bed of Roses. Next, number 4 is Crush from 2000, another top 10 album which reached double platinum status, and it helped introduce the band to a whole new generation of fans. It was 5 years after These Days, and that record showed a lot of John and Richie's songwriting maturity. Crush reignited the band's popularity to new heights with such songs as It's My Life, Say It Isn't So, and Thank You for Loving Me. A classic Bon Jovi album for the 21st century for sure. Next, number 3 is Have a Nice Day, released on September 20th, 2005. Another popular Bon Jovi album of the 2000s is Have a Nice Day. And a lot of people criticize it for John Bon Jovi stretching his lyrical abilities. Give the man a break, will you? The tracks on this one stood out like Have a Nice Day, Last Man Standing, Welcome to Wherever You Are, and of course, the hit single, Who Says You Can't Go Home, a duet with Jennifer Nettles. Since its release, it has gone platinum and reached number 2 on the Billboard 200. Very good album, to be honest with you. Next, at number 2 is New Jersey, released on September 19th, 1988, featuring 5 singles which were in the top 10 of the Billboard Hot 100, and it was their second consecutive number one album on the Billboard 200, and it went 7 times platinum here in the U.S. Bon Jovi proved on New Jersey that they were no one-hit wonder bands like a lot of other artists out there. They were in it for the long run, thanks to singles like I'll Be There For You, Bad Medicine, Born to Be My Baby, and Lay Your Hands On Me. Proved all doubters wrong. And at number 1 is Slippery When Wet, released on August 18th, 1986. This album was known for Bon Jovi's best-known songs like You Give Love a Bad Name, Living on a Prayer, and Wanted Dead or Alive. The first two went up to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. The album itself was an instant commercial success, spending 8 weeks at number 1 on the U.S. Billboard 200, making it the top-selling album of 1987, the following year, and it went 12 times platinum in the United States. Their biggest-selling album to date, by the way. Here is a quick recap of all 15 Bon Jovi records. Even though I haven't listened to much of 2020 or albums like Burning Bridges, I only listened to parts of This House Is Not For Sale, even though I never bought the album. The fans had slept on Bounce. I didn't care too much for What About Now. I thought the first record, 78,000 Fahrenheit, were deserving enough to make it to the top 10. Lost Highway, same thing. The Circle was the last Bon Jovi album I ever bought. These days, even though it was platinum, it was not as commercially successful in the United States as it would be overseas. Keep the Faith saw them move in a different direction, because it was the 90s now, and it was no longer the 80s, so it was time for Bon Jovi to mature a bit. Crush introduced the band to a whole new level of fans. Have a Nice Day saw them cross over a bit with a country music singer with Who Says You Can't Go Home. And of course, New Jersey and Slippery When Wet are the two of the most successful albums in Bon Jovi's category. This has been Joe Lum's Album Rankings.